Kenya region. They're obviously going to exploit this particular season. The whole, I have been impeached, wrongfully impeached narrative. But what I saw, for example, in the Dumberi function was that there's a lot of hype that, Mount Kenya is pretty upset about it. But that's not what we saw in Dumberi. We saw speaker after speaker come onto the podium. And I think it shows that Kenyans have really matured politically. Because speaker after speaker came and was saying that we need to maintain peace. That was a significant call. And then there were those who said that, whatever happens, happens, but let's keep the peace. And at least let's console ourselves in one thing, that whoever is being proposed is also from the mountain. And there was a repeat that, or a declaration that Ameru is from the mountain and Embu is from the mountain, just like a Kikuyu is from the mountain, and therefore the entire Gema is the home, the family of Mumbi, and is from the mountain. So whomever we get, for as long as he's from the mountain, and so far Kindiki has been proposed, we are happy. So I think there was unnecessary hype that there would be, a fallback. Well, of course, the president will have a task and a responsibility to go to the mountain to face his voters and be able to, I don't want to say explain himself, but to explain the process. He should not shy away. I don't think he should shy away from that. It will be very important because he's got to, he's still got to show that even in the face of such a situation, he was not against the people of the mountain. It was about an individual. If he keeps off, they will, someone, and you remember, Rigathi and his team are still there, they will start working probably from the grassroots, trying to show people, you see, it was about the mountain. So I would encourage the government and the president, go down to the mountain, talk to the people. What we saw in Dumberi just says that the mountain is ready to listen. All right.
Of course, there are those who are questioning why we must be speaking of, filling the seat of the deputy presidency from the Mount Kenya region. We have, over 40 tribes in the country. But Nyamori, talk now has shifted to the task or the challenge for the deputy president designate Kithure Kindiki, and whether he will be able to consolidate the agitated Mount Kenya region following the impeachment of what some have called the native son. What are your thoughts on, Kindiki coming into this position with such political expectations already?
My view is that, with tremendous respect, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua has been overrated. Or rather, he has overrated himself. Political leadership depends on the pillars upon which a political leader stands. And pillars are the lower level political leaders who support you. It is very clear from the, the signatures on the impeachment motion, from the voting in Parliament, from the voting in the Senate, and from the public participation records, that a significant number of, elected leaders from Mount Kenya supported the motion. And therefore, that cannot be said to count to nothing. Indeed, it is these lower level political leaders, the MPs and the senators, who actually control the ground. Normally, a higher level political leader at the level of the deputy president and the president and the candidates for the presidency draw their legitimacy and the political support from these pillars that support them. And therefore, you have also witnessed, as my Njokia said, that, we were promised fire and brimstone if the impeachment motion went through. Indeed, the mountain is silent. If I'm to use the words of Honorable Ichungwa, the mountain was touched and the mountain is silent. I think that I have friends, I have colleagues, I have partners from the mountain. And I always say that they are the most practical people on earth. And I believe that the people of the mountain have an interest to stay in and close to government. And that, one time I was having a discussion with a friend of mine to explain to me why they called Honorable Raila Odinga Mtongoria at some moment, and within 1 year, he was no longer Mtongoria. Then they told me that the difference between the Kikuyu especially and my community is that in my community, we would have somebody as Jacom, and therefore we would give him the power of a deity. While in the Kikuyu community, Mtongoria means an important person. And you are important based on the position you hold, and therefore the value and the result that you bring to the community. Immediately, Gachagua was impeached. He lost his importance to the community. In any case, before he became the deputy president, he was just a mere one-term MP. And before he became a one-term MP, what was he? He was just a PA to the former president before he became the former president. And so it is not that there is some grassroots work that he had done, that there are certain positions that he had held, that there are certain, fundamental achievements that he had achieved for the people of the mountain that would make the mountain people stay with him forever. I think that the mountain, just like the rest of the country, has moved forward. And the country is more or less stable. And then you can see, we were told that the country was going through a crisis. In fact, it was very unfortunate to hear, the chairman of the Cohesion Commission trying to sell fear that if you go on with this impeachment, it will divide the country and there could be chaos. There has been no chaos. And indeed, if you look at the fundamentals of Kenya's microeconomics, as being put out by the central bank and other bodies, that means that we are stable. The yields are falling, so that the cost of credit is getting lower, and we are getting more confidence amongst investors and other people into the economy. So I think that the country has moved forward. Whatever is happening in court, I don't think is interfering with the psychic of the nation. I hope that the court will get done very quickly with this process to let Professor Kindiki be sworn in. And I believe that with the support that Professor Kindiki has from the elected leaders from the mountain, both the west and the east, and the rest of the country, and you have seen that even from the region that I come from, Professor Kindiki has almost absolute support. With the support that he has, I believe that he will make a good deputy and an impactful deputy president, and somebody that, if anything were to happen, is capable, credible, and of stepping into the seat of the presidency.
All right, and that's an interesting analysis. Njoki, let me just come back to you with regard to the mountain. And of course, many now looking at Kindiki as to whether he will be able to consolidate that support base. But then there's a differing argument that says then the seat of the deputy president should not be filled by, someone from the mountain, someone like, they designate Kithure Kindiki, because it will divide the mountain even further, especially looking at the, support that the former deputy president has managed to amass for himself, and the public emotion that he's been whipping, which has largely been working within his supporters in the Mount Kenya region. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to answer the first question, where we're asking why would the president then choose to go for another person from the mountain, and there are so many other tribes in this country. But I think, and I want to believe, that he is primarily honoring the electoral covenants that he had. He had promised, and even the former deputy president has been saying that when it came to the mountain region, he had an unwritten agreement with them. And one of those unwritten agreements was that the second in command seat would be to the region. So the term is not over. I guess he probably believes that he has to, in order to show honor, commit to that electoral covenant and retain the seat in that region. It's also a political move because, as we have been seeing, the former deputy president is, like you said, is really working hard to whip emotions. But I will still go back to what we saw in Dumberi. It was a huge crowd. We had a lot of leaders, including, and a majority of whom have been and are part of Rigathi Gachagua's inner cabinet or in a kitchen cabinet. But they came out and they didn't use that platform, which had been, put together to celebrate Uhuru Kenyatta's birthday, but was hijacked to now talk about, Kirima, the mountain. And while there had been, in the beginning, an effort to try and drive the function to be a time where they're going to now sort of like, whip the emotions that the mountain is angry, the mountain is unhappy, the mountain is crying, the mountain feels isolated. The speakers who came on, and the crowd agreed with them, was resonating with them, that the mountain has not been touched. In fact, that was one of the things that they said. One of the speakers asked, has the mountain been touched? No. Do we have somebody coming from the mountain? Yes. So, yes, as much as Rigathi is trying very hard with his team to create some kind of resentment of the mountain against the president, and the president, the person, and the government, it may not be working, to a very big degree because, one, we have not seen any upheaval in the mountain. We have not seen any, chaotic happenings. And then we've got these huge gatherings where people are actually doing the opposite of what had been intended. They are actually endorsing the president's choice. So I think the only person who will be left with egg on face, and whom I would encourage, because I believe he has been listening to us, because if you see the changes that are taking place, his change, even when we saw him yesterday, it means he's listening to Kenyans, he's listening to people, the advice that are coming out. He's no longer taking the hyped guidance from his kitchen cabinet. Is that, he needs to now back down. He cannot be able to build a political platform on hate or resentment. Now, Kindiki, one may think that he's a weakling in politics, but we have to remember this is a man who won his Senate seat twice. He's a man who managed to control the Senate as a deputy speaker. We also saw him at Bomas of Kenya. He was literally telling senior individuals who were there as UDA agents to keep quiet, and he literally controlled them and told them to, to cool down. So I think Kindiki has his silent, hidden political talents. And for as long as he's got the larger Mount Kenya members of parliament supporting him, embracing his appointment, which they did because they voted for it in parliament, then he already has a good support base to go to the mountain and tell them, here I am, accept me, don't allow yourselves to be isolated from the rest of the country because of what has happened. And I'm sure he'll be able to turn it around. I'm sure he'll be able to turn it around. He's not a novice in politics. He's been here. He knows what needs to be done. He's got the support of the president. We saw President Ruto go through a pretty challenging political season between the time of the handshake to 2022. If he could wither that, I think he has the acumen that's needed to wither this.
All right. And Jared, of course, outside of the expectations on Kindiki as the deputy president designate, there's been many questions as to whether we are foreseeing any legal battles, even after the application, to set aside orders barring his swearing in is hard and determined. There are those who've mentioned several things. His resignation, first of all, from the post of Interior Cabinet Secretary. Some say this should have been done months or weeks to his appointment as deputy president, meaning pointing out to the fact that he is not a member of the UDA party. Are these concerns likely to pose a legal challenge or, provide a loophole for detractors to move to court to block his swearing in?
To my mind, because, again, a lot of emotion on the issue, so we are even unable to read the contextual position that we are in. What we can all agree on from the beginning is we are not in a general election. And the requirements of a general election are clear for everybody. What we have is a deputy president who has been impeached. Those are facts we can agree on. Now, this person who has been impeached, the president is allowed a chance to nominate. When the president nominates, which we all agree again, the president makes that decision in writing with his seal, and it is transmitted to National Assembly, which votes. We all agree there. What we don't agree on is the hesitation that this is a public office, this is a state officer, he should have qualifications which we have outlined elsewhere. Now, for me, because the context is different, I think we would miss the point if we were to go that route for the following reasons. One, we are in a governance structure that was moving. Along the way, maybe one tire got flat. We don't all of a sudden now go and take the whole car to the garage. The car keeps moving. Why? Because you can easily just change the tire and keep moving. You know? The rest of the tires are working. If I shift my front left tire to the back tire, and I put we usually, in street terms, we call it the sausage tire, the smaller one, you know, the car can keep moving. We should not put ourselves in a context of general election where it does not arise. Because that text up to ceases to hold office does not have all those things which we are being encouraged to put in our minds. If we can agree on that, then the holistic interpretation of the Constitution would be that the president should not be hamstrung in the executive functions of his office. He should ideally have someone who is able to carry this role. Now, in his wisdom, he has selected someone who is already in cabinet.
Right.
Yes? And to my mind, there is no fetter that restricts him from doing that. If we make heavy weather of IEBC approvals, it will render again that ability to fill that gap again superfluous. Not the results that the Constitution anticipated. You know, it's supposed to be a process that the president undertakes. It is voted on. That is why you do not have thresholds. It's actually a majority. Assuming the House had 55 people that day and they voted, that text only talks of the majority. So, in my mind, it's a contextual issue. Again, with all the emotions, every excuse to ensure that the president does not get his way will come up. And I'm seeing this very frequently. For whatever reason there will be, we are advancing as many reasons as possible to ensure that this continuity does not happen. Yes.
All right, and that's an interesting, we'll be coming back to that, especially the question of Kithure Kindiki. But yesterday, when Rigathi Gachagua asked Kenyans to pray for the president and, pray for wisdom for the president, he added that, pray for wisdom, so, because Kenyans are suffering, the businesses are not working. So let's just take a look at what else is happening in the corridors of justice today, even as we wait for the impeachment case to resume. And so by 4 p.m. today, the Supreme Court will be deciding on the fate of the Finance Act of 2023, as well as the housing levy, when we had a lower court pronounce themselves on the housing levy late last week. And these may be some of the issues, that the impeached deputy president says the president needs to come on. The fate of the Finance Act of 2023, and keeping in mind the activity and events surrounding the Finance Act itself.
Definitely, the end result is unpredictable. It depends on the bench. It would be too early to predict. Let's see what the various parties will do. As I said, I think we litigate too much as a country, but probably that is also important so as to keep the public officers to account. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that the country is moving forward despite the ongoing litigation process. Mm-hmm. At least nothing has held the country backwards. And in any case, even if the bench was to decide against the government in those particular matters, for the Finance Act, we always have the previous Finance Acts to fall back to. And so I don't think there is a vacuum. But however, let's wait and see. That would be my view. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Njoki, what are your expectations? Because the housing levy, for example, has been a rather emotive issue. The Finance Act of 2023 itself is very emotive, and so the court will be pronouncing themselves on that today. Considering the political drama already within the country, many want to see things moving. What are your expectations from the court today?
I want to believe that I don't think the court will choose a path that will cripple the country. Right now, I believe the government is relying on the Finance Act of 2023 to finance its activities. If that is declared illegal, what happens? I heard, I don't know whether it was Jared, last time we were here, he said that law is a social justice, and therefore they look at the broader picture. It's not just about reading the law and delivering a ruling strictly based on the letter. There's also the spirit, and I think one of the things that the court will look at is are the charges that have been brought or the complaints that have been brought up against the Finance Act of 2023, are they genuine? Are they weighty? Do they warrant, grinding the country to a halt? Then we've got the housing levy. I think we had a pronouncement last week. I really don't see the Supreme Court overruling that particular issue. Mm-hmm. I'm very confident that the judges are going to look, or the judiciary is going to look at the state of the nation. We've got this impeachment, we've just come from a heavy protest because of the Finance Bill 2024. There's so much to be done in this country. And we've also got to be, I'm sure they're also going to think about being fair to government, because justice is about fairness. And I believe that they will allow the president, or they will allow this government to go ahead with their projects. And sort of like give them the rope. If they hang themselves with it, they'll only have themselves to blame come 2027. If they give them the rope and they make a nice fishing net out of it, hallelujah. So I really don't expect anything drastic from the courts today at all.
Jared?
Some of these judges, if you look at the work they have, is not a very easy job. Even on when we had the presidential election Supreme Court cases, you could see that the role they had was so elevated from their usual practice. Comments such as hot air up to now are still in our memes. And they still vex the advocates who they were directed at. So it's not a very easy position to be in, but their rules mandate that they look at this issue because law is a tool for social healing. They will use it, they will apply their minds judicially. We will see their reasoning. They are also Kenyans, they live where we live, there are contexts and realities. There is a way the case was presented before them. So I am like my senior, I also await to see the reasoning that they will advance, because it's the apex court. And if you look at their act and the rules that govern them, they actually are supposed to look at the holistic context of the Kenyan situation, the history, you know, the social aspects of it. So it's a broad concept that they are required to look at keenly and to render a decision that gives the country guidance, because they have to, the constitution will be the grand norm. They will apply the constitution in the law that was used. And if you look at some of the decisions that come from that court, they strive to that regard. Not that we've not had issues with the way the Supreme Court decides issues, but there is a general guide which they follow, and we await to see the wisdom that they will apply.
Of course. And so we await that decision at 4 p.m. today, where the Supreme Court will be giving the decision on the Finance Act of 2023, as well as the legality of the housing levy as well. Just before we take a break, Njoki, we are now minutes away to that three-judge bench resuming the case of Rigathi Gachagua. Are you expecting the Court of Appeal to make a last-minute stop to this case in the next 30 minutes or so?
Actually, when I woke up this morning and there weren't any of those snippets that you media houses put out talking about a decision or an order from the Court of Appeal, I had a sigh of relief, because I don't think that the Court of Appeal would want to play the picky ponky game that has been going on by waiting for the last minute, you know, to give an order. We heard the bench say the other day that, you know, a court sitting can go as late as. So if they really wanted, if the Court of Appeal, having seen the complaint raised by Rigathi's lawyers, I'm sure if they had felt it was weighty, they would have given an order at that time. For as long as we went through the day ended yesterday, we've woken up this morning, and up till this hour, there's nothing. I want to believe that the court will allow this hearing to proceed.
All right. It'll be a matter of wait and see. Let's take a break here on NTV. Much more still to come after the break. Stay with us.